showed it to me. I think the government cited it in something.
Well, the government cited it. Did you read through the government's papers and just pick out sites and go find them for yourself?
No?
I didn't think so. So somebody had to go pick this out and show it to you, correct, sir?
I'm not sure, other than in attorney-client meetings, when I've seen the entire mail message.
Okay. Have you, and this only calls for a yes or no answer, seen this in attorney-client discussions? The whole message, just like we have here.
Objection. I think that intrudes on privilege and work product. I think that's a common objection to assert as well.
It is a common objection to assert, and ordinarily don't press the question. Here, this is something that he is now testifying as to what it means, and I think the only way that he has any knowledge about this, he says, is something that's happened in the last 6 months. And so I think, at least in terms of knowing where that information comes from, I'm entitled to know on a yes or no basis, even if I may not be entitled to find out what he was told.
Yeah, I don't think that's right. I don't think you should ask that precise question.
I'm going to press the question, though. You can instruct him not to answer, but this time I'm going to press the question.
I'd like to have it read back then.
Have you, and this only calls for a yes or no answer, seen this in attorney-client discussions, the whole message just like we have here?
Just a minute. All right, we're going to stand on the instruction not to answer that question.
Okay? Have you ever seen this document, the whole message, other than in an attorney-client conversation prior to your deposition?
I'm not sure.
Let me show you a document marked as Exhibit 385, which is a copy of an article from Computer World dated January 16, 1995. And under the column News Shorts, there is a heading that says Microsoft licenses Mosaic Internet browser. And it says Microsoft Corp. Chairman Bill Gates said last week that his company has licensed Mosaic software for browsing the World Wide Web. Did you so state in or about January of 1995, Mr. Gates?
I don't know.
Later on, it says that Microsoft will incorporate the technology into the Microsoft network. Mosaic support will arrive in the fourth quarter, a few months after the Microsoft network debuts, Gates says. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you say that, Mr. Gates, in or about January of 1995?
It doesn't make sense to say incorporate the technology into the Microsoft network, so I'm pretty sure I didn't say that.
All right. Let me show you a document that has been marked as Exhibit 386. The second item here purports to be a message from you to a number of people dated April 6, 1995. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you send this message On or about April 6, 1995?
I don't remember sending it, but I don't have any reason to doubt that I did.
Now, attached to this message, as this was produced to us, I believe, by Microsoft, is a two-page document headed Netscape as NetWare. Do you see that?
I see a 3-page document, yes.
Yes, 3 pages. Pages 3558 through 3560. Have you seen this before?
I don't remember seeing it before.
Now, the title of this 3-page attachment is Netscape as NetWare, and there's a footnote that says the analogy here is that the major sin that Microsoft made with NetWare was to let Novell offer a better, actually smaller and faster with simpler protocol client for networking. They got to critical mass and can now evolve both client and server together. You see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In or about April of 1995, was Microsoft concerned with Netscape getting to what is referred to here as critical mass?
I don't know what Paul meant in using that word.
Do you have any understanding at all about what Mr. Moritz meant when he referred to a competitor getting, quote, to critical mass, close quote?
He seems to be using those phrase with respect to NetWare or Novell, but I'm not sure what he means by it.
Well, he's also using it with respect to Netscape by analogy. That's in fact what he says. Is that not so, sir?
No, it's not clear that the term critical mass is part of the analogy, is it? It's not to me.
Okay. This document is about Netscape. It's not about Novell, correct, sir?
I didn't write the document. The document appears to refer to Netscape as NetWare as its title.
Yes.
And so Novell is talked about in this document, and a lot of things seem to be talked about here. Do you want me to read it?
Well, if you have to answer any of my questions, NetWare is something from Novell, correct, sir?
Fact.
What?
Fact.
Does that mean yes?
Yes.
And what Mr. Moritz here is doing is analogizing Netscape to NetWare, correct?
It's kind of confusing because Netscape's the name of a company and NetWare's the name of a product. And so I'm not sure what he's doing. Usually you'd think of analogizing two products to each other or two companies to each other. But he appears to be analogizing a company to a product, which is a very strange thing.
Well, sir, in April of 1995, insofar as Microsoft was concerned, was Netscape primarily a browser company?
No.
It was not.
No.
All right, sir. In this document, do you understand that what Mr. Moritz is saying is that Microsoft should not make the same mistake with Netscape's browser as it did with Novell's NetWare?
I'd have to read the document. Do you want me to?
If you need to read the document to answer that question, Mr. Gates, go ahead and do so. And when you've finished, if you have the question in mind, please answer it. If you don't have the question in mind, we'll read it back. And the question is, do you understand that what this document is saying is that Microsoft should not make the same mistake with Netscape's browser as it did with Novell's NetWare? And you can read any portion that you want, but I am particularly interested in the heading, which says, quote, Netscape as NetWare, and the footnote right off that heading that says, quote, the analogy here is that the major sin that Microsoft made with NetWare was to let Novell offer a better, actually smaller and faster with simply protocol client for networking. They got to critical mass and can now evolve both client and server together.
Are you asking a question about the whole document?
No, I didn't think I was. I thought it was possible for you to answer my question by looking at the title and that first footnote.
Oh, I thought you asked me what the document was about.
I think it's possible to answer the question by looking at the heading and that footnote. My question is whether, as you understand it, what Mr. Moritz is saying here is that Microsoft should not make the same mistake with Netscape's browser as it did with Novell's NetWare.
Does it say mistake somewhere?
All I'm asking you is whether you interpret this that way.
Does it say mistake somewhere?
Mr. Gates, we have had a conversation about how I ask the questions and you give the answers.
I don't see where it says mistake.
It doesn't say mistake. It says major sin. And if you think that major sin is something different than a mistake, you can answer my question that no, that's not what you think Mr. Moritz means. My question is clear. You can answer it yes, no, or I can't tell.
What is the question?
My question is whether, as you understand what Mr. Moritz is saying here, is he saying that Microsoft should not make the same mistake with Netscape's browser as it did with Novell's NetWare?
No, I think he's saying something else.
Okay. Do you think that when Mr. Moritz uses the term major sin that Microsoft made, he's referring to what he thinks is a mistake?
Probably.
Okay. Let me ask you to look next at a document marked as Exhibit 387. This is an email from Brad Silverberg, or it's a message from Brad Silverberg, I don't know whether it's an email or not, dated April 12, 1995 at 12:53 p.m. Have you ever seen this message before, sir?
No.
The first paragraph says, I have spoken to Paul Moritz and he is in agreement that we should get our internet client distributed as broadly as possible, as soon as possible. Did you understand that that was the view of Mr. Moritz in April of 1995?
I think it probably was.
And when reference is made here to Microsoft's Internet client. Do you understand that to be Internet Explorer?
I think at the time of this document, it meant O'Hare
And what did O'Hara become?
became Internet Explorer plus some other things.
Let me ask you to look next at a document marked as Exhibit 388. The second email or message here is a message dated April 12, 1995 at 12:54 p.m. from Paul Moritz to you and a number of other people. Correct, sir?
That's what it appears to be.
And the subject is the 3-year plan thoughts draft. Correct?
That's, yes, the subject.
Did you receive this message on or about April 12, 1995?
I don't remember receiving it, but I have no reason to doubt that I did.
Now attached here is something that is titled 3-year plan follow-up, parentheses, draft, close parentheses. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you receive this at or about the time indicated of April 12, 1995?
I'm not sure.
Let me ask you to look at the page that bears in the bottom right-hand corner the Microsoft document production stamp ending 7193. And in particular the portion that is under the heading Shell/Browser. Do you have that?
Yeah.
And it says here, quote, "We should get a view as to what will be handled by the Win97 shell and what will not. And if not, how is the needed extension integrated into the Win97 environment," close quote. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Were you told in or about April of 1995 that one of the issues in terms of planning that was needed to be decided was what would be handled by the Win97 shell and what would not be?
I'm not sure what's meant by Win97 shell here. I don't remember seeing that at the time.
Well, you know what a shell is in this context, do you not, sir?
Yes?
And you recognize Win97 as a reference to what ultimately became Windows 98, do you not, sir?
No. The fact that we use a name like that before we've decided what's in a product doesn't mean that when we use that name back then, it referenced the things that eventually got into the product.
Let me be sure if I understand that last answer. Was Win97 a reference that was used within Microsoft to refer to what ultimately became Windows 98?
It was a term that was used to refer to a project. When it was used, none of us knew either what would be in the project or what it would be called. So anytime you see that reference, you can't assume it's a reference to the things that eventually became Windows 98. All you know is they're referring to the next project related to enhancing Windows.
Let me ask the question this way. Was the project that was internally described within Microsoft as Win97 the project that ultimately resulted in Windows 98?
I believe so.
Okay.
Would you like to take a break now?
Sure.
Time is 1:33. We are going off the record. This is the end of tape 2 of the deposition of Bill Gates on September 2nd.
That's next. You'd pull it off of here.
This is next.